beyond the thunder and lightning, past the clouds, over the dark night. She reached up to the sky of stars and caught the red-hot light of the North Star. Opened the earth, rocking with blood-soaked feet. She challenged the whip, the gun, the knife. She challenged the fire, pulled from the bodies of slaves, made into laws, prisons, and courts. Screaming white-hot flames and agony, she challenged millions of headhunters, dragging and ripping apart impossible tender moments of time. Shipping vessels of history, ancient history, destroying the fabric, the godlike claw of destiny of a people with a gun, a knife, a cannon, building the hideous wall of blood called slavery.
Greetings. Welcome back, and thank you all for joining us today. The Washington Post describes last night's off-year elections as follows. Voters shifted sharply to the left across Virginia, New Jersey, and New York in elections Tuesday, sweeping into office Democrats who focused on affordability and capitalized on frustration with President Trump. More than 2 million New York voters, the most since 1969, turned out to elect a Democratic socialist as mayor, rejecting a former governor who was once a standard bearer for the Democratic Party. Well, what does all this really mean going forward? Let's connect some dots and find out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with Dr. Wilmer Leon, and I am Wilmer Leon. With each show, my guests and I provide insight and analysis into current events and the broader historical context in which most of these events take place. Again, greetings to you all, and obviously with the hat, that means I need a haircut. With that, let's look at a couple of today's headlines. Middle East Eye reports no such thing as a Jewish terrorist, says Israeli member of parliament sponsoring bill to execute Palestinians. Knesset member Limor Son Har Melech initiated bill imposing a death penalty for Palestinian prisoners, said it would only apply to those who harm the state of Israel. A far-right Israeli lawmaker who sponsored this bill imposing a death penalty, he said that it will only apply to those that harm the state and will exclude Jews. When asked whether the law would apply to Jewish attackers, he said there's no such thing as a Jewish terrorist. On Monday, a panel approved the bill, which introduces the death penalty for Palestinian prisoners, paving its way for a first reading in Parliament. Folks, this is a clear example of why I've constantly asked the question, how do you honestly negotiate with a group of people who say they represent a settler colonial state that is built upon the extermination of a significant number of its inhabitants? It's called apartheid. It's called genocide. The Orinoco Tribune has reported the legal fabrication of death in Washington's Caribbean War. In recent months, under the guise of anti-mafia and anti-terrorist rhetoric, the Trump administration has launched a deadly naval campaign in the Caribbean, and now in the Eastern Pacific, it's left over 60 civilians dead. Unlike the previous decades of the war on drugs, when the U.S. strategy was sometimes based on arrest and prosecution of suspects, this new offensive, justified as part of an alleged non-international armed conflict with designated terrorist organizations, has turned extrajudicial killings into state policy. Folks, this next question isn't whataboutism. It is, to me, a very simple and realistic juxtaposition. What would be the U.S. response if China or Russia sent a carrier group into the Gulf of Mexico, just 13 miles off the U.S. coast, because that begins international waters, 12 miles off the coast is still considered territorial, and started indiscriminately sinking boats? Where is the American outrage? This is murder. They are violations of international human rights law and the international law of the sea. And that's according to UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, who stated that the attacks breach international law and mount to extrajudicial killings. With that said, on today's episode, the issue before us is the polls have closed and the results are in. Democrats wiped the floor with Republicans in just about all categories. And I'd say, except within a few districts in Virginia, if you're a Democrat and you lost last night, something was obviously wrong with your campaign. But what does all of this really mean? My guest is an independent journalist who edits The Polemicist. He is Dr. Jim Kavanagh. And as always, Jim, welcome back.
Thank you very much for having me, Dr. Leon. Always a pleasure.
So if you want to respond to anything leading up to where we are now, please do. But if not, obviously a lot happened like last night. Leading up to last night, there were a lot of people who were preparing to discuss what would it mean if Spanberger won in Virginia and Cheryl lost in New Jersey, or Mamdani won in New York and Prop 50 failed in California, some kind of mix and match. But it was a straight ass whooping last night. Your thoughts, Dr. Jim Kavanagh?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I do want to respond to what you read about the executing Palestinian prisoners and saying there's no such thing as a Jewish terrorist.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would be news to the Jewish terrorist organizations in the 40s, the late 40s, that ravaged Palestine and killed the Count Bernadotte, who was a a negotiator and who had saved hundreds of Jews during the Holocaust and was killed in a terrorist operation by the Lehi or Stern Gang or Haganah, one of the Jewish terrorist organizations, or the people in the King David Hotel, which was, I still think, the largest single deadliest terrorist operation in the Middle East, killing 91 people. And it would be extremely difficult, strange news to Menachem Begin, who was part of the either Lehi or Stern Gang, and who was asked, weren't you the father of terrorism in the Middle East? Because the Jewish gangs in the Middle East were, in terms of post-war modern terrorism, the initiators of that. And he responded by saying, the Middle East, I'm the father of terrorism in the whole world. And he was one of the terrorists of the Jewish terrorist organizations and one of the prime ministers of Israel, as was Yitzhak Shamir, another prime minister of Israel who was probably involved in the King David Hotel, who wrote an article called Terror, in which he said, neither Jewish ethics nor Jewish tradition can disqualify terrorism as a means of combat. So it's just the fact that within the Zionist movement, terrorism was used and was proudly proclaimed to be an essential part of the Zionist movement, completely consistent with what Yitzhak Shamir called the Jewish tradition and Jewish ethics. So, you got to make up your mind about that, because that's just a completely ahistorical thing, and it's just ridiculous. And the second thing that you mentioned was the Venezuela.
Wait, before you move to Venezuela, did you mention the Irgun?
Well, the Irgun, the Lehi, the Irgun, and Haganah. Those were the Lehi, the Stern Gang, the Irgun, the Haganah. Yes.
The reason I asked about
the Irguns, but you're right. I forgot. I don't know which one.
We don't know them all.
Bacon and or Shamir were part of the Irgun. The Irgun and the Stern Gang were the most radical of the terrorist gangs.
And the reason I asked is because Rahm Emanuel's father was a member of the Irgun.
Yes,
that's why I brought that up.
It's just amazing that in the current context, it was amazing in the previous context that an ex-IDF soldier, ex-Israeli soldier, could become the chief of staff of the president of the United States. Nobody even blinked about it. And now the Democrats are going to put him up again. They think he's not going anywhere because the present context is very different. But no, this is the guy we should have as context. You imagine the chief of staff, an officer in the foreign army being the chief of staff of the president, nobody even saying a word about it. Anyway, but to go to the point about Venezuela too, which is, this crazy, it demonstrates the Americans have no respect for international law. It doesn't apply to them. But this has been going on for a long time. Trump is using the same justifications that Obama used in Libya and in Afghanistan when he was drone killing with extrajudicial assassination of American citizens, including the 16-year-old son of al-Awlaki, and the same justification he used about using military force against Libya, which the Congress actually voted against, and he said, "I don't care, I'm going to do it anyway." So this is again the benefit of the Trump effect is that he does things blatantly and stupidly and just too obviously and crudely that have been going on for years. This is American imperialism at work, and the United States invaded Grenada and Libya and Iraq and Syria and Panama and Santo Domingo and Cuba, and will invade Cuba again if they get away with this. And they've done it all without any regard for international law, and they just dream up their own justifications, and most Americans buy it, and certainly the Congress of the United States buys it and lets them get away with it. So that's that. Now to go to the just to get those rants out of the way.
Now to our regularly scheduled program.
So the election results last night. Well, look, I'm not that surprised. Look, Trump is a disaster. Trump has proven himself in 8 months now, 9 months, to be a complete disaster. He's not doing anything he promised he was going to do. There's more wars. There's no decrease in prices. He's destroying the American economy. There's ridiculous tariff policies which don't go anywhere and end up backfiring him. And he has to backpedal and actually recognize that China has escalation dominance on us in the world economy now. And, he's not releasing the Epstein files. He's not, and he's obviously Israel first, not America first. I mean, this is a problem. It's been very quick. I'm a little bit surprised at how quick it's been, but the disillusionment with Trump has been bound to come because he has no policy. He's fundamentally ignorant. He gets pushed around by the guys he thinks are tough or smart who come in and tell him what to do, and it changes from one day to the next or 1 hour to the next. So you've got, people are from the right and the left all across the spectrum just are fed up with Trump now. They're fed up. The libertarian right is fed up with the wars and with the Israel. Never seen well, I'll get back to that, but first the wars and the Israeli stuff. And certainly the working class voters who thought they were going to get something from him because the Democrats told him how he was the anti-establishment guy, and he comes in, and who does he work for? He's working for billionaire tech bros and the same guys that he doesn't care a damn about the condition of the working class in the United States, as long as he and his family are getting millions of dollars from crypto and tech bros. And that's what's happening. And people are seeing it. So, 42 million people are on Snap in this country. And that's not blue state voters or commies or socialists or pinkos or shit libs. It's regular Americans across the board. So, this is going down fast. And so, unfortunately, again, I'm sorry. It's the seesaw. It's the duopoly seesaw. People, the only alternative they see is the Democrats. The Democrats are going to take advantage of it across the board. All they have to do now is come and say they're not Trump. I mean, Trump came in and say it was not the Democrats. The Democrats screwed things up so badly that all Trump had to do was say, I'm not the Democrats. And a lot of people who were so fed up with what the Democrats did and their lying and their ineffectualness, thought Trump was going to do something different. And that was just being fooled. People were fooled, and the people were fooled by Trump. And unfortunately, they have the only alternative they see of the Democrats. So the Democrats are doing very well. Newsom did very well in California, but that's, again, that's a Democratic redistricting gerrymander. The Republicans are going to do it where they can do it in the states that they control. The governorship of New Jersey and the Virginia is a CIA Democrat. The one that's most interesting is Mamdani in New York. Mm-hmm. The good thing about him is that he normalized, or at least anyone mm-hmm. with a platform that he characterized as socialist and that was anti-Zionist, that was in a way that was absolutely impossible 5 years ago in New York City, really anywhere in the country, but especially in New York. 5 years ago, it would have been possible to do what Mamdani did. And to be frankly anti-Zionist and not to backpedal on that mm-hmm. too much. And he did that. And that's part of this wave, an incredible wave over the last year, the sea change in Americans' attitude towards Zionism in Israel that's happened in the last year and a half. Again, from right to left, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, the right wing is going apoplectic about this. There's a mm-hmm. civil war, a hot, fiery civil war on the right about this. And people are fed up with Israel. They're fed up with the Americans are giving Israel. They're fed up with all the support. It's not America first. It has nothing to do with us. It's damaging our country. And it's now being recognized across the board. So that's a very good thing that Mamdani was able to demonstrate that you can win in the Democratic Party, and they're going to demonstrate in the Republican Party too, with Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene, that you can win on an anti-Zionist, taking an anti-Zionist stance. It's also very good that you can win proclaiming that you're a socialist and proposing policies that are the least radical things in the world. Public transportation for free, buses for free, city-run grocery stores, rent control. These are things that have been aspects of American municipal life for decades in certain cities and in New York. And, he did a great video the other day about this guy, Mark Antonio, an mm-hmm. Italian communist from Italian Harlem in New York, who was the mentor of Fiorello LaGuardia. Okay. And what a great guy he was in New York City politics. People forget about him. They know about LaGuardia. They don't know about LaGuardia's mentor, who mm-hmm. was a flat out socialist. And so Mamdani has normalized or made possible to run a campaign saying I'm a socialist and I'm an anti-Zionist and I'm not going to apologize about that. And you can win in New York City, the capital of capital in the world, and the most Zionist city outside of Israel.
Tel Aviv.
So, yeah, that's a great thing that's happened. And he's got, and these programs that he's promoting, they're just good, solid, progressive programs that are not that radical. He can't do that much. He's going to be a mayor of New York. He's not going to be able to change the foreign policy of the United States. I voted for him. I would like to see that happen, but I'm also very wary. And what again, with the disgust about Donald Trump, it's going to get worse because the situation in the country is going to get worse. And Donald Trump is either going to take us into more wars or back out of the wars, demonstrate how weak he is and how weak the United States is. It's a disaster all the way around. And getting into the wars is going to demonstrate how weak we are because we're going to get stuck in them again at best. So, there's going to be more disgust about Donald Trump, and and Mamdani, here's Mamdani from my point of view, from a real left point of view. I mean, I would not say that saying the electorate moved left, they moved from the right-wing Republicans to the right-wing Democrats, but Mamdani is maybe an exception to that. But from my point of view as a leftist, it's good that Mamdani was able to be successful in his campaign. I hope he succeeds. I am terribly suspicious of him. I feel like it's Obama 2.0 or 1.5. Saw the picture of him, and it's being embraced by Alexander Soros saying, happy to be with you. The guys, all the Zionist billionaires who said he was a terrible jihadist and we're going to move out of New York. They've been tweeting him saying, let's work together now. Now that he's the mayor. So I don't know. I don't trust Mamdani, essentially. I think, we are in a horrible way trapped in the duopoly seesaw, merry-go-round, however you want to characterize it. And we're going to have to see what he does. I just hope what it will do, because he's still, he's likely, I think, to accommodate himself to the Democratic Party, and to be an progressive except imperialism. He's not a progressive against Zion, except Palestine, which is good, but I think he may be a progressive except imperialism. Maduro's a dictator, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. But, what we're seeing in the United States is that the system is failing. And the president gets elected and everybody thinks, he's the guy who's going to save us. He's the guy who's really going to blow up the establishment and turn things around, whether it's Obama on the so-called left or Trump on the so-called right. And they get in, and guess what? They don't. We still have wars. We still have Zionism. We still have imperialism. We still have capitalism. People don't have jobs. They're not going to get, the jobs are going away. People can't buy houses. There's very good analysis. I've seen a little bit of some analyses, showing that the group that Mamdani did best about with were like millennials who are educated, have college educations. They had good jobs. They have degrees, but they can't survive. They can't buy a house. I saw figures of the percentage of 30-year-olds who own a home when they're 30. And like in 1950, it was like 50%. And now it's down to like 20%. People, and one guy was making the point, there are young men out there who want to get married and want to have families. They can't do it. That's one of the reasons, people just have lost the feeling that they have any power in the world whatsoever because they don't have any material power. They're being crushed. So this is what's happening. Donald Trump is blithely, ignorantly, and blatantly demonstrating it in a way that's lipstick off the pig. I don't think Mikey Sherrill, or CIA Democrat in Virginia, or Gavin Newsom are going to do anything to radically change that. They're going to run as not Trump, and that's going to be good enough. And we'll see something like if what Mamdani represents is a new possibility, a new set of possibilities that other people like him will run, but they're going to run into the Democratic Party machine. And like AOC and Bernie, will they get eaten up and absorbed and co-opted by it? I don't know. So I'm a little wary of the whole thing.
A couple of things. One, I'm glad you framed it in the context of a new set of possibilities, because a couple of the data points that I looked at, one, turnout, record level turnout in New York for an off-year election. Record level turnout in New York, record level turnout in, I think, New Jersey and in Virginia. So that to me was an incredibly powerful signal. Mamdani wins as a candidate from the Democrat Party, and the Democrats ran as the traditional Democratic elite ran as far away from him as they possibly could. Even listening to Cuomo's concession speech, the first thing Cuomo said was, I ran against an ideology that is contrary or in opposition to, I can't remember how he phrased it, to the fundamental tenets of the party. So as a member of the Democrat Party elite, that says to me, they're not getting the message. As you said, a new set of possibilities that they don't want to embrace. So what signals do you take? This tells me that the elite are still in line to rinse, wash, and repeat. They're not going to learn a damn thing from this, Jim.
Yeah, well, I think the Democratic Party is institutionally committed to capitalism, imperialism, and Zionism. And in the Mamdani case, when Cuomo says that, and it was true, one of the things Mamdani said in his speech was that we've overturned a political dynasty. That's right. Mm-hmm. It's so nice to see the Cuomo brand crushed. But what Cuomo was saying in the Mamdani case about Democratic Party values, that's Zionism, mm-hmm. First of all. Okay. Mm-hmm. There's mm-hmm. nothing in his economic program and the specifics of it that's contrary to the supposed, again, what you're hearing from Cuomo to a certain extent, there's nothing in the Mamdani program that's contradictory. Let's say FDR, FDR social welfare, social democracy light program. There's nothing contradictory to that, but you see that the Democratic Party has moved away from that entirely. The Democratic Party is a party of neoliberal capitalism, and in that sense, Mamdani's program is ideologically opposed to that. Mamdani's program is an ideological win that's important. Whether it's going to be a structurally significant win in terms of
a policy win,
either of New York or the United States,
right?
We don't know yet. But that's what the party is afraid of. They're terrified. First of all, the Zionist thing. They see Zionism, American support for Zionism, right and left, and especially on the right, which they didn't expect, slipping away. It's gone. I mean, it is gone. You watch Candace Owens, you watch Dave Smith, you watch Tucker Carlson, you watch the right-wing podcast. They are pissed off. And this weird Charlie Kirk thing was the beginning of the end of it. They're all convinced the Israelis did it. I mean, and they're pissed off. They're just pissed off at being told they can't talk about stuff. And the left wing, progressives on the left have, for the most part, I think, over the course of the Gaza thing, gotten over their progressive accept Zionism, progressive accept Palestine. So you've got this, again, sea change in America. And I didn't think it would happen. I've been writing about this for 30 years and nothing's budged. And suddenly anti-Zionism is legitimate. Not just I criticize this or that Israeli policy, but the whole damn thing is racist settler colonialism, Jewish supremacism, and it's apartheid, and we should have nothing to do with it. And really, that's profoundly different. So that's a profound change. And the idea of socialism, just putting the word on the table, scares them. Okay, because this is it's what you see throughout all the debates about this. The idea of society itself. They're all in the Thatcherite notion. When there's no society, we're just a collection of tax-paying individuals, and we can't afford this, we can't afford that, and what do I pay taxes for? What do you pay that? And all that, how much taxes? That's all blocking the idea of a society, that we are a society to get together, make decisions, and decide what our values are, what our policies are. They're going to, and not just reflect, but enforce our values, make them real, and turn them into something. People should eat. People should have healthcare. People should have education. Are those our values? What about taxes? No, the minute you get in that discussion, you're finished. So the idea of socialism, we have a society. I want to say this because we're in America's an individualistic society, and that's all right. We have our culture of individualism, in a sense that's good.
Mhm.
You know, we more than any other society, more than a lot of societies, value individual autonomy and individual freedom, and that's good. But fundamentally, everybody has to realize the individual does not precede the social. The social
Mhm.
precedes the individual.
Mhm.
The individual that we like and we cherish, and that libertarians like, individual who's got autonomy, who's got political rights, enfranchisement, that's a product of a certain kind of society and capitalist society. But it's also being threatened by capitalist society, because ultimately that individual doesn't have power. It's not the government that's taking the power away from you. It's the capitalists who are taking the power because they control the government. But what I'm saying is, to have an individual of the kind we like, you have to have a certain kind of society. And we have to get together and think about that and decide what we want to do as a society. And you don't wait on who we're going to collect taxes from, or how much we can get from the rich. You don't wait on that at all. You just do it. But we don't have a polity and a government or any party that really knows that. We have a situation now where nobody understands what society is, let alone government. And as government is some kind of weird thing that's out there floating around, but it's not theirs. And this is Mamdani has great rhetoric about it. It was great last night talking about precisely this. Mm-hmm. We have to take control of this. And that's what we have to do. I don't think it's going to come from the Democratic Party or the Republican Party.
Well, and to that point, watching MSNBC last night, Michael Steele said, if I were the head of the DNC right now, I'd be so happy because the people are running to the party.
Yep.
And I would say, not so fast, Michael Steele. Don't misinterpret Tuesday night, because you still don't have as a party, you still don't have a message. As a party, you're fighting the guy that just won the biggest victory for your party. You still want to disassociate yourself from him, as far as the party elite are concerned. Cuomo again dissed him. Hakeem Jeffries endorsed him at the very last minute, kicking and screaming. So
Obama didn't.
There you go. So, and when you look at the numbers nationally, for as bad as Trump's numbers are, the Democrats' numbers are worse.
Yes.
So get a damn message and listen to Zohran Mamdani. Understand a huge part of your electorate can't pay rent, has trouble putting food on the table. And by the way, Republicans do too.
Yeah.
You got pissed off soy farmers. You've got pissed off beef farmers. Why not figure out a populist message that explains to the American people how you're going to practically make their lives livable, affordable, and better?
Well, exactly. Look, you watch the Times over a series of months did analyses of how the votes have changed over the past 3 election cycles, and the drifting of votes away from the Democrats and party registration in states after state and group after group, including Black and Hispanic voters, from the Democrats to the Republicans. This is the problem. Donald Trump is the president because people despised what the Democrats did. And and if you've spent the last 16 years trashing Medicare for all, saying we have no alternative, we have too much budget deficit, we're going to raise the tax. This taxpayer money thing is the death of any progressive program. But you spent the last 10 lying about everything, and people knew it. Russiagate was a hoax. People knew it. Okay, Donald Trump was not chosen by Vladimir Putin in 1987 to be the Manchurian candidate who's going to take over the United States on his behalf. And people saw this was baloney. Donald Trump, the COVID thing was a hoax from beginning to end. They lied about it. And people were thrown out of their jobs and thrown out of school because of that. And people were sent, the Biden administration put in a regime of censorship for vaccines. What the hell are you why can't we talk about that? For everything. And they put in a regime of censorship and everybody saw it. So if the Democrats, if anybody wants to come to me and say, because I was pissed off at what they did, and they didn't do anything, didn't give you Medicare for all, didn't give you healthcare, didn't give you education, didn't give you jobs, didn't raise the minimum wage. Every time it came up, can't do that. We can't do that. So if you have been moving, if you have whole sectors of people, the Latino voters on the border towns of Texas voted for Trump because they were fooled. Oh, he's just going to go after the illegal aliens and blah, 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 blah. No, Miller and he are setting up a police force that's going to be used to terrorize to terrorize everybody. And that's what this is about. This is about control and preemptive counter-revolution, not about illegals. I mean, you could have Obama and Biden deported more illegals than Trump. You can do that without this police force on the streets. So what I'm saying is if you don't realize that you've lost as you say, the Democrats' favorability ratings are worse than Trump's. Trump's terrible. Democrats are worse.
In fact, hang on, Jim. Let me just quickly, the sake of simplicity, Real Clear Politics. If you go to Real Clear Politics and you look at the aggregate polling numbers, Trump unfavorable 51%, Republican Party favorability 53%, Democrat Party favorability, unfavorability 59.4.
Yep, minus 59. Yeah,
minus 59. And I
what
think,
I'm saying is,
well, wait a minute, Jim. Quick point. I did take. Oh, first of all, I think like you, I did go to Catholic school, so math is something that we studied.
Yeah.
I think a negative 59 is bigger than a negative 51. And I took a number of years of statistics and some other advanced math classes. So I think the Democrat numbers are worse than the Republican numbers, unless Donald Trump has changed mathematics within the last 3 years.
Yeah. And why people voted for Trump was because he was presented as the anti-establishment guy by the Democrats. We talked about this time. I kept saying, why are they doing all these lawfare things? And even Andrew Cuomo said were political persecutions. They're just turning him into a martyr. They're making him look like he's some kind of anti-establishment guy. And well, guess what's happening now? People are coming out and voting for the anti-establishment guy, more Zohar Mamdani, because the establishment stinks. But what I'm saying is, if you want to appeal to the swaths of voters who were fed up with you and disgusted by what you did, and really having obviously lying and gaslighting about the fact that your president couldn't, walk and talk, and lying and gaslighting people about it. Everybody was disgusted about this, and rightfully so. So if you want to appeal to all those voters who left your party, and you can see this, it's just horrible, and went to the Republicans and to Trump because they thought, oh, he's something else. You got to say, I account for the things that I did. I did this and it was wrong. It was wrong for us to play this Russiagate game and fake impeach Trump over all this crap. Why don't you impeach him now over blowing up Venezuelan boats? It was stupid of us. We were wrong. What we did in the whole COVID thing, locking down the country, creating $6 trillion of closing businesses, everything, forcing people to get vaccines that they didn't work and they didn't need, kicking people out of school and jobs. That was the wrong thing to do. And I apologize to you for doing it. I'm never going to do it again. If you don't do that, they're not going to trust you. And they shouldn't. Because if you're not capable of doing that, that just means you're setting them, you're going to fool them again as soon as you get the chance. So this is the problem the Democrats had. They had years of gaslighting and lying and doing nothing of every time some possibility, well, raise the minimum. We can't do that without the parliamentarian. Every time something came up, they didn't do anything concrete, but they gaslighted, lied, and told you were a Trumper if you asked a question about whether Joe Biden really was mentally incompetent. So this is, if they don't account for that and publicly say, I recognize what we did there, then they're not going to be trusted. They're not, and they shouldn't be. And this is the problem we have. They're going to run to Trump. They're going to run away from Trump, and they're going to run back to the Democrats because Trump is going to be so bad.
Or stay home.
This one election does not change the entire trajectory of the last 3 electoral cycles.
Correct.
So you have a problem that you got to do over the next 3 years. You got to come to grips with what you did wrong and acknowledge it and say, we are responsible for the fact that you left us. And this is why.
Let me ask you this, and then I want to move on to the government shutdown. Am I wrong to say, because to your last point, they've got to admit that they're wrong, but they seem to be using the pages from the same playbook of 24. They had success last night.
Mm-hmm.
And so will last night's success blind them to the national reality? You don't have a flipping message. You don't know how to message. And if you think last night is the prescription to success nationally, you're going to take these pills and still be ill.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm afraid of. Exactly.
Okay.
Their whole program for the last 8 years, 16 years, 12 years anyway, and the whole program still is, we're not Trump. Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. That's their program. Trump is bad. And people now who thought, I can't tell how many people have good people, liberal Democrats. Look at the liberal who, my readers said, I got to vote for Trump because really you got to do something. And Trump's, at least they're afraid of Trump. He must be doing something right because the establishment is afraid of him. And I'm telling people, are not going to like this. Bobby Kennedy is the classic liberal Democrat. Bobby Kennedy has a position and a program about health and vaccines that I largely agree with. Okay, you may not agree with it, but
I don't. But go ahead. What
I'm saying is Bobby Kennedy was in all other respects a liberal Democrat.
Right.
Okay, and the Democrats could have had him. The first one they wanted to censor was Bobby Kennedy over vaccines. Whatever you think of vaccines, you have a discussion about it. You don't censor people on the internet.
I agree with that.
Ridiculous. So they drove people, and a friend of mine, again, classmate of mine, is actually a good friend of Bobby Kennedy. He said, I was with Kennedy the last couple of weeks, and all these doctors around, they were all Democrats. They were all liberal Democrats. All these doctors who are in Kennedy, they have a position on a scientific issue that has nothing to do with the Republicans and Democrats, but they've been turned into that.
Mm-hmm.
And ridiculously so. But so people on a lot of other issues like that, we're saying, oh, I don't want censorship, so I'm going to go to Trump. I don't want, of course that turned out to be ridiculous, but they were fooled by that because the Democrats were so bad about it. And they got to acknowledge that. And I don't think they have. I think that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. They got a good night last night, so they're going to think, oh, Trump is so bad that all we have to do is be anti-Trump. And that is going to, unfortunately, for good reason, Trump is going to be, the results of the Trump administration are going to be so bad that that's going to work to a large extent, but it's not going to solve the problems. That's why I think we're on a merry-go-round and we're in a cycle that's very bad. And I doesn't give me much hope, even though, the thing that gives me the biggest hope is the sea change on Zionism. I think that actually can be something that changes in a way that's very important, but otherwise I just don't know.
Here's my last analogy on this. You're at the nightclub. You've been begging this woman to dance all night. She's turned you down all night. Finally, last song, she dances with you. And now you think you're a ladies' man. Folks, you're not macking. It ain't going to work. And what I also think in a nutshell that you've been really getting to, and what we've been unpacking, is there's a huge difference between winning elections and being able to govern.
That's right.
And so, because we have to look at the midterms that are coming up, and how are you going to govern? And that takes us into this shutdown issue, because one of the big problems that I see with the Democrat Party approach to this is I give them full credit and praise for locking into this issue about healthcare subsidies. That's a huge, huge issue. And they're spot on this issue. But beyond that, what do you got? What are you putting? So, in my opinion, what Hakeem Jeffries and Schumer and so many of these others should be doing is saying these healthcare subsidies are a tremendous problem. We've got to solve it, and we're going to stay locked in until the Republicans come to the table. But along with that, because now you've got people's attention, along with that, here are 3 other things we're going to propose to deal with housing, to deal with the economic uptick that's costing people tremendously, and then education. They need to be presenting a package. I'm not saying that they need to be negotiating those other 3 issues to get the government open. What I'm saying is, as they continue to beat the drum about the healthcare subsidies, because you have people's attention, what else are you going to do, Jim Kavanagh?
Yeah, well, look, it's been astounding to me, well, at least surprising to me, I'll say, the extent to which this hasn't caused a ruckus in the country. The government is shut down for a month.
Mm-hmm.
Thousands of people are being laid off. Programs are all across are not being held back or stopped. Okay, you've got SNAP, you've got food stamps now being cut back. You have the health insurance, the health insurance period that's coming. That's now in place, and it's going to be bad. Okay, but
wait a minute, Jim. Wait a minute. So let me ask you this question: aren't we billed as the greatest country on the planet? Don't they tell us we have the strongest economy in the world? If that's true, why do you need SNAP in the first place?
Yeah, 42 million people.
If your economy is what you claim it is, if your country is as great as you claim it is, if your democracy is the model for the world, why do you need a program for women and infants and children to feed them?
Yep.
I don't hear them. So get to the crux of the problem, Jim Kavanagh.
Well,
I'm
what
sorry
I want to say,
interrupted you, Jim Kavanagh.
What I want to say is this: look, the problem here is the government is shut down. A lot of people don't care because they really don't understand what the government is. The government is this thing that is like a wild dog that's in the house. You know, sometimes it brings you things. Sometimes it goes out and attacks other dogs. You know, and it's always supposedly eating out of your hand in some way. You're feeding it, but you don't really know what it's doing most of the time. So for most people, we've created a situation. Again, this is the antisocial situation. The government does not, in fact, embody the will and the purposes of real society. The government, in fact, is run by the ruling class for its benefit, and it takes it does what it needs to do to pacify the most of society and say, look, the dog brings you some things once in a while, but you really, as a citizen, that's not mine. That's something out there that's running around doing something. So the concept of the social in the government has become so weak. And this is really the victory of kind of libertarian capitalist ideology in a certain sense, that the government's out there and I'm here, and implicitly there's a default antagonistic relation between you and the government. Okay, so they don't really know that, and the Democrat and both parties are part of this. And I'm going to this goddamn taxpayer money thing. Look at what's Lindsey Graham. What did he say yesterday? We're killing a lot of people and we're cutting your taxes. And that's what most people want to hear. And I'm sorry, but the problem that's being shown by the healthcare, the insurance premiums. This is a precisely example of the problem. This shouldn't exist. We should have Medicare for all, single payer, universal coverage. And I contend, and I'll claim it to anybody, we would, if Barack Obama hadn't opposed it, hadn't stopped deliberately, not only Medicare for all, but the public option, which he opposed. He got the program that he wanted, which is this program, which he said was the Heritage Foundation program, which he bragged to Mitt Romney in the 2012 debate. This is the program you put in Massachusetts. The Democratic Party sensed for 1 minute in 2016, maybe, or 2020, oh, they were all for Medicare for all, but they're not. The Democratic Party institutionally is opposed to it. Hillary Clinton is opposed to it. And the program that we have now is the same program. It's the private health insurance program, right, which Obama set up in a way that is now subsidized by public money. And these health insurance premiums that when you see, if without the health insurance premium, it cost the family $800, with the health insurance premium, it cost them $2,000 a month. Guess who's going to pay that? And where that money's going to go? That's public money. Between that $800, if you put the subsidies back, the government is paying health insurance companies the difference between those things. And so you have, look at where your taxes are going. Look where your tax money is going. This is ridiculous.
Isn't that neoliberalism?
What's that?
Isn't that neoliberalism?
Yeah.
Isn't that using?
You're absolutely right. If the Democrats were putting forth a program, they'd say, you see, we need universal coverage, Medicare for all. But they can't do that because then they have to acknowledge, this crap that we put in was, look how expensive it is. And look what it's costing public money that's going not to doctors. It's going to health insurance companies. So this is, but they're not going to do that. This is the point. And it's also because behind all of this, and this is why this happens all the time. We don't really have a budget. We have continuing resolutions. We have special appropriations. We have debt ceiling arguments. This is because this fundamental issue of whether taxes pay for government programs or not. And if people think their taxes pay for government programs, this is why you can set the guy who makes $40,000 against the people who make $20,000. And he says, or she says, why should my taxes go to pay for people who are starving? The government's job, it's not my job to pay taxes to feed the people who are starving. Your taxes, first of all, if you don't understand that your taxes don't pay for that, the Democrats should be saying, this is what I would be saying, we're going to cut your taxes. Anybody who makes less than median income in this country, we're going to cut your taxes. We're doing away with payroll taxes because they don't pay for Social Security and Medicare. Okay. And we're going to raise taxes on the wealth because the purpose of taxes isn't to pay for things. It's to control inequality and inflation. And you control inflation by taking away money from people who have too much of it, not from the working class. Mm-hmm. And you control inequality by
giving money to those that don't have it.
People who have $500 billion have too much political power. And that's what that was for. That's why we had 94% tax rates on the highest tiers of income in 1946. And they said it. And the chair of the Federal Reserve in New York said it. Not for revenue. We don't need it for revenue. The government creates as much money as it wants. We have it because of inequality and inflation. And if you don't do that, if you get into this argument, where's your tax money going? Then you have this whole taxes, payers and eaters, payers and useless eaters. Why should I pay my taxes for these people can have health insurance? You shouldn't. Yes, that's not where it works. You're not paying. You're not paying for that. The public has gotten together and either said, as a society, we think everybody should have health insurance. The money we can create, as long as the doctors and hospitals and pharmacists and drugs are there, or we can invest in producing them. The money's not a problem, and it's not coming out of your pocket. So you've got to get into this, or you're going to lose this forever. And I'm telling you, the Democrats don't know how to do this. The left, the right, they don't know. Everybody's on this page of tax. Where's my taxes going? How much taxes do I pay for this? You've lost the game, and this is going to go on forever. And I know people listening to me may think this is crazy, but you just got to understand we have a fiat money system, which means the government creates money at will, doesn't need to collect taxes from it. And if you think that you're dependent on the private wealth of individuals, then you are. Then you're saying, the The guy who pays more taxes has prima facie should have more voice about what we're doing. But that's not what you're dependent on. He's a parasite on and the fact that he has a lot of money is because the government, which is controlled by the ruling class, allows money to be hoarded by people that we shouldn't allow. So
well, Jim, you are crazy, but you're not wrong. You're crazy, but you're not wrong.
I know. I know. And it really is very simple. Once you accept the fact, and everybody does that, everybody says, oh yeah, I accept the government is making money whenever it can. But once you accept that, then if you could make as much money as you can, why would you have to collect taxes from your children? I mean, it's what are you doing? And so why do you have to borrow money? This whole debt thing is, and it is terrible. They put $6 trillion. They are claiming that if we have to spend X $1 million or $1 billion in the economy and we don't collect enough tax, we spend $5 billion in the economy and we only collect $4 billion in taxes, then we got to go to rich people and borrow, quote unquote, which is not the same, which means take some money that they have in an account, take $1 billion that they have in an account, in a checking account, put it in a savings account and pay them interest for not using it for 5 years or 10 years, because that's what we have to do. No, you don't. Mm-hmm. You can have, the government can have a deficit on its books forever. What difference does it make? It does, but when they force themselves to accommodate the deficit by going out and giving interest to people for not spending money for a while, rather than taking the money, if they have excess money, just taking it from them, because we put that money in their pockets to begin with, then you're going to be paying trillions and trillions in interest. That just makes inflation worse. It just defers it. But what I'm saying is, one has to understand what the purpose of taxes is. Mm-hmm. And it is not to fund government programs. It is not. And unless everybody gets on that train quickly, these kinds of fights are going to go on. There'll never be a budget. The budget's going to argue, oh, we didn't collect tax. Who you tax to do this? Oh, continuing resolution, debt ceiling. We have a debt. We can't borrow. The debt ceiling is nonsense. I've written about all this, but this is now, it's obviously true. You start with the premise, the government creates money at will. Once you got, and you just think through the logical steps of that, then there's a lot of crap that we're doing that we have no reason to be doing. And there's an argument we're having about nothing. Nothing. There's no argument about where the money's coming from. The money comes from, the government creates it. Now, can create too much money? Yes, it can. Well, guess what? The government also has a means of taking money out of the economy, called taxing. But you take it from the people who have too much. You don't take it from everybody else. And you only take it if there's too much money in the economy. And you only take it from the places where there's too much. But anyway, this is what I'm saying, that this whole, again, and on the concrete issue of the health insurance premiums, because what they're showing is, look how much money we're spending. Look where this taxpayer money is going. And it is, taxpayer money is going into the pockets of the health insurance industry. Why? Mm-hmm. But the answer to that is, we need to put that money. We need to save those subsidies. We need to put all that money into the pockets of health insurance. No, we got to abolish the system of private for-profit health insurance and have public health insurance, which does not run for profit. Whatever money we spend on it, we're not spending a dime on it for the profits of the CEOs who make tens and hundreds of millions of dollars per year. That's profit that's coming from public money, from those subsidies. And we can control costs. That's the only way you're going to control costs is if there's a single payer, mm-hmm. who says, excuse me, but I'm not going to pay any more for that. And nobody in the country is going to be able to, everybody in the country is on that. So you get fair prices and fair fees for products and services, but that's the way you control costs. For-profit industries, health insurance, are never going to control costs. Right. They always are going to want to increase prices. Right. So you're in a cycle.
No matter what the cost is. No matter what the cost is, they're going. Well, in fact, you could even change the algorithm to. You can change it to a fixed price system. You can change it to a cost. What right now is a cost plus system. There are a number of ways that you can change the algorithm to lower costs. To your point, and speaking of money, Carol Asbaram, thank you. In reality, can either or any party exist without big donors? We have to take the money out. Citizens must go. You're right, regardless of the message. Citizens United must go. and that's Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson is working on a project to do away with Citizens United, which opened the floodgates, allowing unlimited amounts of money into our electoral process. Jim, before you go, I want to be sure, and I'm going to talk about this probably for the rest of the week because for me, it's incredibly important. The passing of Dick Cheney, and what's really, and I could even tie this to the assassination of Charlie Kirk in terms of how the deaths of these individuals is being used to promote a narrative that for all intents and purposes is a lie. Dick Cheney was not a patriot. Dick Cheney was a warmongering goon. And they're trying now to say, well, in the last election, he told us that Donald Trump was a swamp monster, and that and he voted for Kamala Harris as though he found Jesus. No, what he was telling you in not voting for Donald Trump is Donald Trump's messing with my money. And I don't want Donald Trump messing with my money. He was speaking on behalf of a class of elite in this country that find Donald Trump to be odious, noxious, and dangerous to their interests, not the interests of the country, Dr. Jim Kavanagh.
Yeah, Donald Trump is too blatant and too obvious and too gross to get away with, to defend American imperialism and capitalism. Well, Barack Obama did it very well. Donald Trump makes it too obvious. It's a grift and it's corrupt. And Dick Cheney and every one of them, Kamala, Gavin, Gavin Newsom, I think Joe Biden, they all put out statements about, Dick Cheney was a wonderful guy, was a real American patriot. We might have disagreed with him about certain things, blah, 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 blah. But this is again the point. All that what the Democrats demonstrated in the 24 election when they had Dick Cheney's daughter running around, they were reviving that, was, look, the entire establishment is opposed to Donald Trump. That's what they did. And all of the people who said, we don't want any more neocon wars. Look, all the neocons are going to the Democrats. So they said, oh, Donald Trump's not going to stop the neocon wars. Of course, it's ridiculous. But that's what they did. The Democrats did not have a principled position against neocon wars and against regime change wars. And they don't. And again, one of these things, unless they say, we were wrong about Libya. We were wrong about Syria. This was terrible what we did.
And we lied to you about it.
Absolutely. And unless they do that, anybody who's really in principle and heartfeltly against regime change, neocon wars is going to say, we don't believe you. We don't trust you. So
look at this. Look at this, Jim.
Anything.
This is the project for the New American Century.
Yeah.
This is the think tank that Dick Cheney and his swamp monsters created. And Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton,
yep,
Loretta Lynch, Jay Johnson. How do they wind up, Joe Biden and John Kerry? How do they wind up on the same side of the issues as Donald Rumsfeld, Bill Kristol, his father Irving Kristol, Paul Wolfowitz, Richard Pearl? They are warmongers. How? And see, a lot of people don't know about these confluence of interests from what we are led to believe are ideologically opposed to each other.
That's why I won't say left and right, because it's right. It's capitalist, imperialist, Zionist. Though that's the nub of the establishment America, and they all are. Every one of these people, they have different opinions about how to enforce that, how to encourage it, how to maintain it, and some of them are smarter about it than others, and some of them do it under a guise of liberal democracy and humanitarianism and equality and blah, blah, blah. And some grew it on the guise of, I want to take the oil. You'd be that stupid. I just want to go. I want to take the oil. We'll do whatever we want. We'll blow up everywhere we want.
It's style over substance.
Exactly. So, that's
do you wear brown shoes with a blue suit, or do you wear burgundy shoes with a blue suit? Or oxblood. Do you wear oxblood loafers with a dark blue suit, or can you wear brown shoes with a dark blue suit? That's all this is.
Yeah. Or you wear a flannel shirt and jeans.
How does Barack this is rhetorical, of course, but for how the argument was structured relative to Barack Obama and what he was supposed to stand for, how does he wind up in the same organization as Dick Cheney?
Well, what he was supposed to stand for was always a PR front. I'm sorry, but it wasn't that hard to see. You had to look at his background. You had to look where the Hamilton Institute. He got up as the Nobel Peace Prize winner and said exactly what Donald Trump is saying, except slightly better. We're the one indispensable nation.
Right.
You're going to be, he preached to the Nobel Prize Committee, we're going to be using our military intervention because we have to, because we're the one indispensable nation. What Phil Oakes, essentially we're the cops of the world. And that's what Donald Trump thinks. That's what Barack Obama thinks. That's what he always thought. And people were fooled by it. Like they were fooled by Donald Trump. You could see what Donald Trump was. It wasn't hard.
To that point, in his Nobel speech, he said, I stand here on the shoulders of Dr. King. I stand here on the shoulders of Nelson Mandela. And as soon as you butt Dr. King and Nelson Mandela, folks, there's a problem on the horizon. I am the leader of a country, and therefore I have a different set of responsibilities than what these guys had.
Yep.
Folks.
I stand on the shoulders of Martin Luther King.
It was a grift.
I don't want to go with the United States is the biggest purveyor of violence in the world today. In fact, I agree he's right. And I have to do that because I'm the president.
Dr. Jim Kavanagh, as always, man, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time today. Always appreciate the analysis and look forward to having you back.
Yeah, thank you, Wilmer. It's always fun.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it, folks. Well, there you have it. Thank you, Jim. Really appreciate it. Thank you all for listening to the Connecting the Dots podcast with me, Dr. Wilmer Leon. Stay tuned. New episode tomorrow. Ray McGovern is going to join us tomorrow. He is going to talk about Dick Cheney because he was in the White House while Dick Cheney was running around in there. And I'm sure Ray was swatting him on the nose with a newspaper, telling him to go sit in the corner. Anyway, please follow and subscribe, leave a review, share the show, follow us on social media. All the links are below. This is where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge, and talk without analysis is just chatter. And we don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. See y'all tomorrow. Ray McGovern's going to join us. Until then, I am Dr. Wilmer Leon. Have a blessed remainder of your day. Peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.